If you're preparing for Leaving Cert Maths, then this video is for you. The final grade you walk away with will depend on two factors: your mathematical knowledge and your exam technique. Mathematical knowledge can take years of time and effort to acquire, and it isn't something that can be changed substantially overnight. In contrast, exam technique can be rapidly improved with a few simple tricks and tips. In this video, I'll provide you with 5 useful exam technique tips that have the potential to give a massive boost to your final grade. Tip number 1 is to always write something down. Even if you don't think you can correctly solve a question, all is not lost. The marking schemes for Leaving Cert Maths are designed to reward you for every bit of progress that you have made. In many questions, correctly obtaining one single step of the solution can earn you 30 or 40% of the available marks. Oftentimes, correctly presenting 2 steps of a solution can bag you 70 or 80% of the marks. I'll illustrate this through an example from a past paper. Question 10D on the 2022 Ordinary Level Leaving Cert. I'll advise you to pause the video and give this question a read. Solving this question in its entirety is quite difficult. We need to have an understanding of expected value and correctly apply it to the given situation. However, even if you've no idea what expected value is, you could still pick up a lot of the marks for this question. We are asked to work with the cost of the classes for a year. Let's think about this a bit and perform some preliminary calculations. We know that each individual class costs €6. The second bullet point mentions attending 52 classes in a year. We're asked to consider the cost of the classes for a year, so it would make sense to calculate how much these 52 classes would cost. Well, each class costs €6, so if we've 52 of them, it would cost 52 times 6. This comes out as €312. All in all, this question was worth 10 marks. If you had written down this one simple calculation, it would have already gotten you 3 out of 10. But let's not stop here. In the second bullet point, we found that the 52 classes would cost us €312. We can do a similar thing for the 104 classes in the third bullet point. To find the cost of this, we would just multiply 104 times 6. This would give us €624. If you had just written down these 2 lines of workings in the exam, you would have ended up with 7 marks out of 10. So, even if you didn't have any knowledge of expected value, you still could have walked away with 70% of the marks. The takeaway here is the following. If you're faced with a question that you don't think you can solve, you shouldn't lose heart. Give things a go and write down anything that you think might be relevant. Picking up marks might be a lot easier than you think. Tip number 2 is to not let one bad part ruin a question. Most Leaving Cert Maths questions have a part A, B and C, and some of them even have parts D, E, F and G. If you struggle with one part, you shouldn't let it affect your attempts for the others. The official marking scheme document contains a very important statement which I'll share with you here. In general, accept a candidate's work in one part of a question for use in subsequent parts of the question unless this oversimplifies the work involved. So even if you end up with a strange or incorrect answer for one part of a question, you can still move forward with this answer and pick up the marks for later parts. In some longer questions, the topic shifts gears completely midway through. Parts A, B and C could involve statistics, whereas parts D and E might only involve simple percentage calculations. Make sure that you carefully read through every part of the question and don't give up if the first few parts go badly. Tip number 3 is to utilise the formula book. When you walk into your English exam, you're not handed a big book of quotes. When you walk into a French exam, you're not handed a French dictionary. However, when you walk into your maths exam, you're given a booklet brimming with mathematical formulas. A wise student would make the most of this offering. After reading through a question, you should immediately try and open up the formula book to a relevant page. This can help jumpstart the problem-solving process. In many situations, simply copying out a formula onto your exam script can pick you up marks. I'll illustrate this point with an example. The question is the following. The volume of the cylinder is 36 pi meters cubed. Work out h, the height of the cylinder. Well, this question involves the volume of a cylinder. Our first instinct should be to open up the formula book to the page containing formulas for surface area and volume. This appears on page 10. The cylinder section contains two statements. A equals to 2 pi rh and V is equal to pi r squared h. If we look up to the top right corner of the page, there's an explanation for what these letters mean. A represents the curved surface area and V represents the volume. Since the question involves the volume of a cylinder, we'll want to use the result V is equal to pi r squared h. Once you identify the correct formula, you should copy it out exactly as it is onto your answer booklet. This question was worth 10 marks in total. The simple act of copying out the formula would have already earned you 3 marks out of 10. This is a common trend in questions which require formulas. Simply writing out the relevant formula can often bag you 30 or 40% of the marks. Tip number 4 is to use your calculator to its full potential. Modern calculators can do much more than performing simple arithmetic operations. Some tasks, such as calculating the standard deviation of a dataset, are time-consuming and difficult to do by hand. However, they're quick and easy if you know how to do them on your calculator. Every student will have their own personal preference when it comes to their calculator model, but my favourite is the Casio FX83 GTX. This calculator has built-in capabilities to quickly perform repeated function evaluations, convert numbers into scientific notation, calculate ratios, and much more. If you want to learn how to utilise this calculator to its full potential, check out the video linked in the description. Last but not least is tip number 5. Don't leave the exam early. The typical student in Ireland will sit through 5 or 6 maths classes every week during their secondary level education. When you accumulate all the time spent over the course of 6 years, things start to really add up. Whether you liked or hated it, you have spent over 600 hours of your life inside of a maths classroom. All of this time and effort culminates in the Leaving Cert Maths exam. Listen, exams are not everyone's cup of tea. Sometimes they're frustrating, tiring, and leave you feeling like you've nothing left to give. However, I'd urge you to dig deep and make a commitment to yourself to not leave the exam until all the time is up. As you've seen in this video, the marking schemes benefit the student who is willing to stick it out and give things a try. Picking up marks might be easier than you think. You've already spent over 600 hours of your life studying maths. And no matter how badly you want it, you're not getting this time back, so you may as well make the most of it. If you leave the exam early for the sake of 30 minutes, it might end up being a decision that you regret.